my God, it's happening again.
And we just went live. So we are live. Should we start it off, Doug? So we are live, so I'm gonna go ahead and kick us off. Nick, you getting back on?
Yeah.
All right. So, welcome to Fresh Tech Tips. I am Darrell Norris, CEO of Fresh Tech Solutions. I have a couple of my business partners here with me today.
I'm Nicholas Mbezwe Daniel, founder of Aegis Project Management, LLC.
And I am Dr. Doug Franklin, CEO of Deck Launch, LLC, and happy to also be here with my friends. How y'all doing today?
Man, pretty good, pretty good. I know Nick's over here having some tech issues. Come on, Fresh Tech.
But I'm happy to be here as well, bro. I'm happy to be here as well.
Nah.
We need to run all the tech stuff in the world.
So yeah, I'm happy to be here as well. And today's Fresh Tech Tip topic is life after lockdown. To reopen or not to reopen?
That is the question. So with everything going on in all of these states that are starting to loosen some of these restrictions, is it even worth you trying to open your doors?
Yeah, and so, there's been a lot of uncertainty. You know, a lot of people, and some of the things that people are worried about, and you know, from every point of view, like from the government's point of view, from in general, like for example, 30 million people claim unemployment. The market, which has sharply gone straight down. The stock market, people are saying that it's going to come right back up, but in reality, it doesn't look like it's going to be so because of, like I said, unemployment claims, people not being able to work, the poverty going even higher. So there's a lot of things that are making people even feel more uncertain and making this decision even tougher than it is just from a health standpoint.
No, definitely. And it's kind of crazy because it really depends on what kind of business you have, right? There's some businesses who never even close down. Like for us, we never really closed down as a business. I mean, we wasn't at the office, and that did affect us a lot because you know how close we are working together. So it just affects every business a different kind of way. And so, not everybody even has the same decision to reopen. Some people might be trying to do a relaunch or pivoting to a different type of business model. Doug, what do you think about the different types of businesses and those, who should be reopening and who's this hitting the most?
Well, I hate to give this answer, but it pretty much depends. And so the way that we decided that we should look at this is like how we look at anything else, which is by taking into consideration the SWOT analysis. So looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that your business may face. Because just like Darrell said, there's businesses that have been wide open that don't have anything to worry about. There's businesses that had to completely shutter their doors. Additionally, you have businesses that have shifted their business model, and then you have businesses that have are trying to pivot and relaunch. And then you have brand new businesses that came out of either necessity or just having a little bit of time since you're working from home. And so with all those things, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked. So I think the way that we thought about it was going with the to open or not to not reopen. So I guess we should start looking at what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of reopening today.
Yes, and I love this episode because we're actually going to be breaking down a SWOT analysis for you guys to see how that process works. So go ahead, go ahead. Oh, and welcome Nick via video.
You guys can see my ugly mug.
All right. So yeah, let's get into this to this SWOT analysis over reopening or relaunching.
So the first, so the thing with it, so let's start with this. Let's start with the S, right? So strengths. So the biggest thing that you'd have is just kind of at least the feelings of normalcy. Right now, everybody's been working at home, probably putting a suit top on with basketball shorts like me today on the Zoom call. And
Never.
Stand up, Doug. Stand up.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. It's not popular, Fred.
But no, that's definitely not favorable to the community. But but that's what we're dealing with now. Like people are in this mix of life and work at the same time that may not necessarily feel the same for them, or they've been sitting at home altogether because they've been furloughed or laid off, and so the opportunity to open back up and bring people in that either have been working in a non-traditional setting for them or haven't been working at all is a bright side to things, right?
Yeah. I can add to that, Doug. I can add to that. And, as far as like strengths, even with the return to normalcy, we're seeing that it's become more than a feeling. I think after maybe a week ago or as this month started or last month started to end, people started to get antsy, like, yo, I want to get out. But now we're actually seeing protests and we're seeing demonstrations. I think I saw in Washington, people filling up that mall area where Martin Luther King gave I Have a Dream speech, and there's like thousands of people there clustered against each other. We saw some government buildings being stormed, with weapons. I heard Galveston this weekend was packed with people. So the unrest is becoming very, 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 very much palpable. It's gone from just feelings, thoughts to now people are having actions showing that they do want to return back to normal.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into another strength that I think, we talked about the return to normalcy, but that also brings an eager market on the consumer side. People are ready to do things. People are ready to go buy. People are ready to spend their money. And so reopening, one strength to reopening was you'll be able to capture that eager market that's out there.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit in pre-production. So like when we just looked at like the restaurant market, for example, where like when there were some places that were just getting crazy lines out of the door, regardless if people could sit down or not. And so now if you say that the doors are open, then there's another subset of restaurants that may not have had the food truck capacity or even just the ability to get people situated so that they could enjoy that food experience the same way they were. And so, and people that love their restaurants are pretty particular about their experiences. So I'm sure that a lot of these places over the last couple of days, particularly in the Houston community, since we know that they're open, people have been running to the doors as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So that was so we covered the strengths. Let's move on to some of these weaknesses. So let's talk about, if we're doing this SWOT analysis over reopening or relaunching, what were some of the weaknesses that could come? Obviously, one of the main weaknesses is, catching coronavirus.
Yeah,
or
putting,
putting your clients and your customers and your workers and yourself in danger. So that's a big weakness, and we're assuming we're talking about a business that you can, a brick and mortar business that you actually have doors to. For someone like us, we're not going to have to worry about that in our SWOT analysis because we can do virtual meetings still, and we're still not meeting people face to face. So, but for a restaurant or something like that, they can't do that.
And supply chains too. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, and this is a scary thing when you think about it. And so like, there have been many a medical professional that has suggested that a second wave is coming. And so the first thing that's really scary is if you have happened to see some of these pictures of things that are going on at some of these restaurants where they're really packed. We drove by a restaurant on Saturday where the patio was completely full, and I'm pretty sure they weren't 6 feet apart. Not snitching, but just looking at the reality. So here you go, opening up a restaurant, not really doing the takeout stuff. There's a really scary reality that you're opening your restaurant up just to close it again. And how much did it cost? How much did it cost? Not necessarily the opportunity cost, but the financial implications of closing your business, because that's costly, opening it and staffing it, which is costly, and then closing it again. So you may be looking at something that's really scary for your business.
Yes.
Yeah, and something, Darrell, can you make that point that you discussed earlier about it not even being worth it operating at a lower capacity?
Yeah, and like I said, that all goes back to the numbers. I'm not gonna say it's not worth it. I'm not gonna say that.
You never know.
What I am gonna say is know your numbers. If it doesn't make sense for you to open up at 25%, and you have to pay employees and you have to pay electricity and lights and all this other stuff, and that cost adds up more than you can make with 25% capacity, it really doesn't make sense. But it might make sense to another business. So it's all about knowing your business and what makes sense to you. And so knowing your numbers is very important when you're doing a SWOT analysis and trying to determine if reopening is a good idea for you and your business.
Yeah, and also, I know we mentioned that, okay, people are saying that they want to come out, and like Doug just said, some of these places are packed, but that's not necessarily the norm for everybody. I think some studies show that 70% of people would not go out and spend at bars and restaurants, even though the lockdown is over, just because they don't feel safe. 85% of people will not get on a plane right now. 80% of people will not go to any large event. So until true confidence actually comes back that we are safe, you might just be opening your business expecting people to come, and people will not come.
Yeah, and right on that back end of that, let's hit on market uncertainty. And let's say you do open that restaurant and planning on making that 25% sales, and what if they just don't come? And now you open the restaurant and you spend all this money paying employees, paying to get the restaurant started, and so know your numbers. Know your numbers and know your market. But that's a serious weakness that we need to think about when we're talking about doing a reopening or a relaunch.
And so thinking about that, and because of a lot of the things that we've continued to talk about, the big word being the operative word being uncertainty, then opportunities and threats are generally a lot heavier, because we have to be future forward with something like this, particularly because COVID is we don't know a lot about it, and there's just a lot of conjecture being shared, and we're not sure what's true. Hopefully you're not drinking Lysol, but there's a lot of other things that we really need to focus on. So let's start with opportunities.
So opportunities.
Go ahead, bro.
So opportunities are, they're always going to be big, but let's talk about generating revenue. Everybody's
easy
scraping for cash right now, so that's an easy one. One of the opportunities, you'll be able to generate that revenue that you may have been losing throughout the time you've been closed. And one of my favorite one on the list actually is growth. Right now people need somebody, and if your business can be that somebody for them, it can help your business in the long run. If people look back and see that your business has been there through these hard times and providing for the community, that helps. That helps.
And and then on top of that, potentially you could be looking at uh, a boosting your reputation. So if you are still providing some of the services that you otherwise haven't been able to give to your community because of the lockdown restrictions, you could be seen as you could be positively seen as a business that is really looking to help the people. And so there is that opportunity of gaining goodwill the same way that you would gain revenue.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of the people that we have been working with throughout this. A lot of people who have been hesitant in the past to add mobility to their business, going mobile. Think about restaurants who generally did not do any kind of curbside or didn't have the internet set up for their website set up or things like that. If they got it up and running, when they come back into the market, that's a whole new stream that wasn't there before that they've added now. So within chaos, there's opportunity. Exactly. Within chaos, there's opportunity. It's just that it's so hard. You need a lot of resources to get that up. Just think about, Torchy's is an example. Just think about how if you go to their website now, it's completely different. Their menu's different. It's not easy to make those changes that they made, but they're going to benefit from it. But the little guy may not be able to do that, and we've been working with some people trying to help them, but there is opportunity to grow, and then that growth, establishes your reputation with people. There's the people who are looking for somebody, and during the hard time, you're able to serve them. So guess what's going to happen during the easy times? They're going to come right back to you.
Definitely. So let's get on to these threats. Let's talk about these threats. Last part of our SWOT analysis for this subject.
Corona.
And we yes, Nick. That's a good threat. So that's the one. Going back up to those employees that you hired to come back to do this relaunch. One of the biggest threats is the waste of resources. So you have all these workers here and they're not doing nothing, or whatever resources that you use to reopen. This is always going to be a risk. There's a loss there. Always going to go back
to stay safe. Yeah, even the resources that you're expending to stay safe. I saw, I think a video, in Atlanta, I think they opened a little bit early, and this CrossFit gym, and they've changed their setup. Everybody has like their own 10 by 10 square. They have put equipment there for everybody, all the equipment they can need. That's not normal. Like that's extra resources. You have to hire more people. You got to wipe down every 30 minutes. You got to, this just, it's not normal. So you're adding a lot of extra efforts, which is going to equal time, which is going to equal extra cost to be able to operate.
No, definitely. And go ahead, Doug.
And ultimately, when you think, just thinking about the CrossFit gym example is a great segue into the next piece, which is high health risk, because let's really be serious. Is that we've opened up the floodgates have been open to start allowing businesses to work as normal, but at the same time, we're seeing numbers of the highest reported cases of Corona. We're seeing high reported cases of death due to COVID at the same time. So, if you choose to believe it or not, for the sake of trying to open your business up, there's a huge health risk. And especially if you're looking at something like a gym where you have to basically spray yourself down with Lysol and everybody around you every 5 minutes to make sure that everybody's safe. It's just not, it's probably not a good environment or a safe environment for you to engage in.
Even on the lesser extreme side, like a barbershop, it's kind of the same thing, where there's going to be a big change, in how things operate. And we just had a comment from the great Maggie Jean she was saying another threat was actually losing the business, and that's actually our number 3 on our list, bankruptcy. So great point, and yes, exactly, losing the whole, risking it all and losing it all.
Yeah, I think J. Crew just filed for bankruptcy throughout this. Macy's, I believe, is starting to open back up, but they were pretty much very, very close to bankruptcy in the beginning. I don't know if they got bailed out with some of this money, but someone like Macy's, who was struggling like all of last year, and they come back through this and they try to open. Can you imagine, God forbid, can you imagine if somebody, catches something or gets infected from Macy's? Those are headlines that you can never, ever take away. That could be the death blow to your business. So the stakes are really, really high out there.
Yeah, and you just hit on reputation, so I don't even think we need to hit on that anymore.
No, it's true. Remember, the cost of coming back out and it not being safe, or coming back out and then failing, it's a huge one.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Reputation is a very interesting one, because basically you could either be like the superhero to some, or you could be a capitalist monster to others. Like a really interesting example here in the Houston area is Turkey Leg Hut. So you have people that are so excited about how they've tried to find alternative ways to be able to provide their food and their goods, but on the other hand, when you watch the videos, it don't look like anybody social distancing, and you're like, "Are you serious?" And so then you have people that love them for being able to get their food out to the communities, and where people have been trying to eat their stuff. But then on the other hand, you have this other subset of people who's like, "Man, that's kind of irresponsible, guys. Like, what are you guys doing to circumvent that?" And so we're not necessarily saying you're going to be darned if you do or darned if you don't, but you have to make sure that you're aware of what's going on based on your business and your business needs.
In a
situation like that, bro, the Turkey Leg Hut, I'm sorry, bro. In a situation like Turkey Leg Hut, what they did because of that feeling is that they did other things to show that we are still open, but we actually do care about the community. I think they did a lot of things for first responders, and they put a lot of money behind it just to show people, hey, we're open. This is a tough decision, and we decided to stay open. But look, we're still doing all these things to try and help the community, because that's a real thing that some people will deal with out there, that double-edged sword.
Yeah. All right. No, I love it. I love it. So let's get on to this, to the next SWOT analysis. We're gonna do a SWOT analysis over staying closed. So let's start from the top. Let's run through these strengths.
No corona.
So I mean, it's really easy. I mean, there you go. You can't get sick at work if you're not at work. That's how it works. It's just like that.
And one thing about this is that some of the stuff that I was seeing yesterday, it's crazy. When I was telling the guys that I was watching this piece, and they were just playing the timeline from Wuhan all the way to here. And you know what's shocking? A lot has not changed. And that's part of the reason why the government is like, okay, let's just open, because we don't know how long this is going to continue. So a lot has not changed. Like all we had was social distancing, and that's the one bullet that we had, and there goes that bullet. So it's just like a fend for yourself type of thing. So health-wise, it's a big incentive to just keep it in status quo.
Yeah. And everybody knows I'm an extrovert, but I am still gonna practice my social distancing. We're still not doing in-person meetings, so if y'all want an appointment, we doing virtual appointments. so if I'm doing it, I'm saying that to say that's saying a lot.
You know what I'm saying?
It is. We can't even chase them down because we're social distancing. It's kind of rough. So let's get back to weaknesses now. So like, if you were losing money because you weren't open, well, then that's just going to keep on going, and so you're going to have to still try to figure out, what do these costs mean for you in the long run.
Losses are going to continue to grow.
Yeah, and then the scariest thing is actually the competition. So what happens if you are the socially responsible business on your block, and then all your competitors open up at the same time?
Yeah, that's
That's
a big
the
one.
idea for you. Yeah, and even something even scarier than that. What if you're the little guy who's competing with the big guy down the street from you? And they have more resources for you, so they're able to pivot a little bit and open, and you have your family you think about. It's just you, and maybe your wife is part of your staff, your team. Maybe you have a couple of your kids working there, and there's no way you can bring yourself to do it, and you're making the responsible choice. What is that going to mean for you when you do decide to come back? Is that distance, that gap between you and your competitor, is that now insurmountable, or is there a way to come back? And how much resource will it take extra for you to try and catch up?
Yeah, your
And that's
competition
a
is,
scary thing. That's a really scary thing to fight with the nature of ethics, right? So like you're talking about if your competition is opening up, but you're truly saving lives, right? It's one of those things. It's an ethical dilemma that a lot of this of our most recent generations have not had to experience. Do I open up my business at the sake of people, or do I at the sake of people, or do I keep my business closed and lose my business and potentially my livelihood? That's a crazy thing to actually force people to think through.
I feel like that was a common thing back in the day, making those kind of decisions. And we're not faced with those kind of issues these days. So nobody's really facing any of these kind of issues these days. So that's why we're pushing this SWOT analysis. So you can just know the information and know your business and know your numbers. So continuing on with this SWOT, we did strengths and weaknesses. Let's hop on these opportunities. So obviously you can save costs as far as reopening costs. So not paying those costs.
Whether it's your employees or how much money it would take to pivot, like I mentioned with some of the other changes, changing out your whole business strategy on the fly. Change your website, putting your investment into that, maybe some extra marketing that you're going to have to do right now when things are kind of tight. All that, you don't have to spend that money. You got to compare it to what you're actually losing, but just on the cost side, you don't have to spend that.
Yeah, the nature of you have a little bit of opportunity for reallocation. Like we definitely understand that, so many businesses are losing so much of their generated revenue, but when you have this time to think, and I think we covered this in our first COVID episode. You have a lot of time to think to where you can start to do some of the things to change your business that you otherwise wouldn't have done if you weren't slowed down. So just from a lot of the conversations we've had with our clients across all three of our businesses, we found that our clients are generally saying, oh my gosh, I actually got to go handle things like have my functional website, which I otherwise wasn't worried about because I was raking in dough. Or I need to shift my business model altogether and really figure out how this virtual thing works. There's so much going on, and you have the opportunity to do it right now. While you're closed, rather than panicking, you have an opportunity to plan.
Yeah, and just us as a company, us as Fresh Tech, we've added so much over these past month or two. It's crazy. Internal processes, functionalities, different new features, all kind of things that we wouldn't have even had time to think about doing if it wasn't for this time to actually rethink and strategize. That's one thing that I do love about it.
Yeah, necessity is the father of invention. So everybody who's out there now, that's the biggest. This is probably the biggest thing that is a positive, the biggest opportunity that you have, the biggest positive about all of this is that time that you have to actually slow down and actually pivot and get better and grow, whether it's you personally as a business owner, or improve parts of your business, relocating some of those resources that you would have been spending, like we're just talking about, not reopening, reoccurring some of those resources to actually beefing up things that need to be addressed so that when you do open, maybe it's in a couple months down the road, you're actually saved out, moved some of those risks out of failing and rushing back. You actually be more prepared and maybe more likely to succeed now because of the new infrastructure that you put down.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the last T. Let's get on these threats. So what are the threats of staying closed? Likely increases that it's likely that you won't reopen. The longer
Yes.
that period, the longer that period lasts of you being closed, the probability of you reopening it goes down. So you don't
Doug,
want to.
Doug, can I ask you a question? Can you, before you add to this, can you also talk about how quickly does the market shift away in a time like this when things are so up in the air? How quick is it for, okay, this what you were doing before closure, it was working, you had this market segment that you could count on, and all of a sudden that market segment seemingly evaporates or shifts completely to something, and then now your business or your business idea is obsolete either completely or a large percentage?
So there are definitely some perspectives that talk about kind of like how social and commercial movements are based on the people and what the people do. And so one of the things that can potentially happen is that when you come back to your reality, even if everything comes back exactly normal functionally as it did 3 or 4 months ago, the people that are coming in the door ain't going to be the same. So an example for me, the guys know that I love smoking cigars and I love sitting in lounges smoking cigars while I work. That's something that I do because it gives me a little bit of a social opportunity. When I'm not with them, I get to be with another circle of cool people. But what happens if people like me just say, hey, I like the cigar more than I like the social experience. Moving forward, I'm not coming into the lounge. All I'm doing is buying cigars. So for cigar stores, that's great. For cigar lounges, not so great. And those are things that could potentially happen. And these are things that have happened. One of the old case studies they talk about in business schools is when like an organization of mothers went against sugary sodas prior, like 50 years ago, longer than 50 years ago now, but a long time ago, basically shut it down where there was a tax on Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Like things like that can happen based on how the people feel, and that's what you have to be really, really concerned of. And it's crazy because that's what we always talk to our clients about, right? You need to have the pulse of the people. Your idea of your product isn't necessarily the right thing. The pulse of the people is always the right thing. And so to fulfill the concern that Nick is telling you, you need to be out talking to your people. This is a great time to utilize your platform on social media, your Instagram, your Facebook page, to ask people what really is going on because they're there. Figure out what's going on and then apply that to what's going to happen with your business.
Yes. Great words, Doc. So to sum everything up, we just want to give you the tools. We want you to have this SWOT analysis. Break down the subject, take your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, and break them down and know your numbers and make decisions. And ultimately, that decision is up to you. So thanks for joining. Again, this is Fresh Tech Tips. This is Life After Lockdown, and we will see y'all next Monday at 12 o'clock. Thanks for joining Fresh Tech Tips.